I guess for us, daylight is very important because daylight is nature. Actually, during a certain time of the day, the sun comes in, and then the figure of Christ is actually made of metal plates. The light goes through it, and you actually see the light is dispersed through the body of Christ. And that's also supposed to mean the transfiguration of Christ as he becomes from a human being back to heaven. The church was one of the buildings that all architects wanted to do because it's meant to be a test of the architect to do something that is soulful, maybe. When the church finished, there were many people who visited it. A lot of the church goers visited. They actually burst into tears, and they said, "How do you know this is the kind of church that we wanted?" The passion.
What was it?
The passion.
Oh, how do we keep the passion? I've got an answer, have you?
Oh, you can answer.
I think something really important to get passionate about something and to bring other people along with you.
Singapore is celebrating a new national holiday, Completion Day. Singapore not only benefits from fail-safe protection against seawater, but also from extensive high-quality housing and leisure facilities. A total of 900,000 people, or almost 1/5 of Singapore's population, live in CPR 2100 developments.
Like in Singapore, we actually designed a zero-energy new town. That the whole town could be also self-sufficient in food and also being able to have alternative means of energy for it.
So for us it was very interesting to think about 2050 because we have to imagine a good future.
So I think we were trying to push all these agendas and see how we could actually come up with innovative solutions that would project us into the future. And I think that was the exercise of this studio.
Actually, architects now just take financial products, which happen to be buildings, and they just style them to look attractive. And so it seemed to be that there was no passion or vision in architecture anymore. The concept we came up with was basically that the city, as a construction, takes one more level, jump up the scale. So in this concept, we took a building as a city column, we called it. The apartment blocks then became like the bricks that we built the city out of. So we realized if you multiply the ground plane as well as the buildings, actually the city doesn't really get more dense. There's more parks, there's more gardens, there's more sports facilities, more community facilities.
And certainly in Bangkok, a lot of foreign architects came in and gave them buildings that are actually not suitable for Bangkok, which is a tropical city, and that we felt that it was actually very important for us to demonstrate what a tropical high-rise solution would be for living. And that was really the main thrust of the project, is to demonstrate that. And we created, instead of a very solid building, but a very porous, a very permeable building that actually created a lot of internal spaces, and certainly it created enough perimeters for each apartment to allow very effective cross-ventilation in the unit. So it is completely different from the other buildings that in Bangkok at that point of time we did it. So it was a very clear demonstration on a high-rise for living in the tropics.
You know, a wall is a wall, while in the tropics, a wall is maybe just a membrane or something where things pass through. We did an exhibition in Germany, so they said, we need to explain your buildings to the German people because German people are not that familiar with Asia, not familiar with the tropics so much. So actually they came up with the term, the breathing architecture, because they said, for us, this is what is amazing about your buildings, because your buildings are open, the wind comes in, nature comes in, they seem to be breathing.
Through a mixed sandwich approach, we are able to put cross-programming different kind of buildings one on top of the other. Wind and cross-ventilation in the buildings, we were able to create 1.5 to 2 meters a second, rather than when it's actually air-conditioned, you don't get enough air exchange for the students. Actually, the wind actually makes the spaces very nice and comfortable for the students. During the months of from December to January, we will find students wearing sweaters in the school. Some of the students will actually feel cold in them, which is rather unusual in Singapore. So I think this one is completely different because it's almost very it's a living high-rise building where the building structure supports multiple layers of gardens. Even when you're actually living in a high-rise building, you can actually enjoy the gardens that you on ground level. We started doing vertical green walls in a very robust manner that we could actually then allow the green creepers to continuously grow up to 100 meters. We finally got a complaint from one of the residents on the higher floors, about on the almost 30th floor. They actually complained that the young kids were stung by bees. So, and I think that was really quite nice for us because we realized that, that by replicating all these gardens at a higher level, we were also able to create an ecosystem for birds and insects as well at higher levels. The jury actually said to us was that we came up with very clear and very simple solutions. We were able to create a very clear line for people to come from the ground level to a very deep part of the station very quickly, and also at the same time, when you go so deep down, you are still able to connect back with nature. You're still being able to see the sky, and you're still being able to see the trees as well. But at the same time, the expression of being in a canyon was something that was being used for both stations. And every time when we find that when people come out onto the platform, they are always very surprised to actually see natural light. There's always a very nice flood of light coming in and a very nice textured wall surface. And you always find people always lifting their head to look around, which is very good for us because we know that they notice a change in the environment. And And we know that the devices that we adopted in our design actually works. We actually don't like the idea of sustainability being all about high technology or about equipment. So this is how we wanted to demonstrate sustainability. It's not about spending more money to create alternative energy or to create a more sustainable building, but how we could actually create a better environment, and to actually let nature be the one that is actually more dominant and more appreciated. The ground level is almost dedicated as a garden space, but you actually feel like you're walking on stepping stones and that you're walking through water, and you're also walking through green walls, and you're actually stepping in and out of pavilions as well. The ballroom is actually like internally it's a whole pavilion, a cabana. So the idea of the movement of a person through a garden was how we imagined people moving into the buildings. But they're actually quite interesting and also quite a nice scaled a space for people to actually use in the landscape as well.
Which you've also got to bring in. Then this economically weaker sector housing. But I just checked with them, we can combine the...
I guess for us is we have always been designing for the users, and that we are very concerned about the human and the human scale. And we are always talking about, we like to use the term charming scale. But really, for us, it's a scale where, as human beings, we are comfortable with. And I think we learn a lot also about old buildings, old cities, heritage buildings. We like to think from scratch how people actually use the building. And instead of accepting what we see around us as a solution, it sets a very good standard for the city, and to set a different direction for the city as well. And what is nice about Taiwan is that you have beautiful mountains and vegetation, but when you come to the cities like Taichung, there's not much of it. And I think that was something that we felt would give another dimension to Taichung, to create a different level of appreciation of nature. And I think when we visited Gongyi Road, we really liked the vibrant nature of it, because it's filled with restaurants. There was a very interesting human scale to it, and a very nice, charming scale to the street and that part of the city. And we really thought that what we do is very consistent with what we do with most of our buildings. We wanted to try to sort of create a very mixed use and a very vibrant sort of residential building in this project. It wasn't not a regular site, so it was a little bit of two parcels slightly joined together. And both towers does the same thing. It has got the apartments with the walls on the outside, but they always look into the gardens. Even though you're quite high up in the sky, you actually can see the gardens within 4 stories. All the apartments look into the gardens, but at the same time, the people outside the city actually looks at these gardens as well. So, and I think it's the whole idea of creating all these gardens for everyone in Taichung to enjoy. Actually, what I like about the project was the clients, actually. To be honest, it's not, when you created all these gardens, you have to pay to build these gardens. And I think it's also a very brave thing, and that they all wanted to do an exceptional building. And I think it was the combination of these two factors creating a value for the city and for the people of Taichung.